Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So we're going to continue reading from Srimad Bhagavatam. We are on 6th canto. We finished reading the first chapter. Now we are going to begin the second chapter. In the first chapter, we saw how the Yamadūtas had come to take Ajāmila's soul. They were stopped by the Viṣṇudūtas, and the Viṣṇudūtas were asking the Yamadūtas, what is the basis of punishment? And the Yamadūtas were telling them how when one is sinful, then one has to go to the court of Yamaraj, and that how Ajāmila, even though he was a very good Brahmana, he had gotten so attracted by this prostitute that he gave up his wife, his parents, and he was maintaining her and her children with all sorts of sinful activities. And so now we are going to continue reading. Ajāmila delivered by the Viṣṇudūtas. In this chapter, the messengers from Vaikuntha explained to the Yamadūtas the glories of chanting the holy name of the Lord. The Viṣṇudūtas said, now impious acts are being performed even in an assembly of devotees, for a person who is not punishable is going to be punished in the assembly of Yamaraj. The mass of people are helpless and must depend upon the government for their safety and security. But if the government takes advantage of this to harm the citizens, where will they go? We see perfectly that Ajāmila should not be punished, although you are attempting to take him to Yamaraj for punishment. So because yesterday we heard the Yamadūta said that Ajāmila was so sinful, yet he didn't do any atonement, any prayaschit. But here the Viṣṇudūtas are saying, he was chanting the holy name. It was due to Ajāmila's glorifying the holy name of the Supreme Lord that he was not punishable. The Viṣṇudūtas explained this as follows. Simply, by once chanting the holy name of Narayan, this Brahmana has become free from the reactions of sinful life. Indeed, he has been freed not only from the sins of this life, but from the sins of many, many thousands of other lives. He has already undergone true atonement for all his sinful actions. If one atones according to the directions of the Shastras, one does not actually become free from the sinful reactions. But if one chants the holy name of the Lord, even a glimpse of such chanting can immediately free one from all sins. Chanting the glories of the Lord's holy name awakens all good fortune. Therefore, there is no doubt that Ajāmila, being completely free from all sinful reactions, should not be punished by Yamaraj. As they were saying this, the Viṣṇudūtas released Ajāmila from the ropes of the Yamadūtas and left for their own abode. The Brahmana Ajāmila, however, offered his respectful obeisances to the Viṣṇudūtas. He could understand how fortunate he was to have chanted the holy name of Narayan at the end of his life. Indeed, he could realize the full significance of this good fortune. Having thoroughly understood the discussion between the Yamadūtas and Viṣṇudūtas, he became a pure devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He lamented very much for how very sinful he had been, and he condemned himself again and again. Finally, because of his association with the Viṣṇudūtas, Ajāmila, his original consciousness aroused, gave up everything and went to Hardwar, where he engaged in devotional service without deviation, always thinking of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, the Viṣṇudūtas went there, seated him on a golden throne, and took him away to Vaikuntha Lok. In summary, although the sinful Ajāmila meant to call his son the holy name of Lord Narayan, even though chanted in the preliminary stage, Namabhas, was able to give him liberation. Therefore, one who chants the holy name of the Lord with faith and devotion is certainly exalted. He is protected even in his material, conditional life. So he was meaning to call his son, but he chanted offenselessly, Namabhas. That purified him of all the sins. Sribadarayane Uvacha.
Sribadarayani Uvacha.
Vachan.
Evam te Bhagavad-dūta.
Evam te
Bhagavad-dūta.
Yamadūta Bibhashitam.
Yamadūta Bibhasitam.
Upadharya Tan Rajan.
Upadharya
Tatan Rajan.
Pratyahurnaya Kovida.
Pratyahurnaya Kovida.
Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Sukadeva Goswami said, My dear king, the servants of Lord Vishnu are always very expert in logic and arguments. After hearing the statements of the Yamadūtas, they replied as follows. Shri Viṣṇudūta Ucca.
Shri Viṣṇudūta
Aho Kashtam Dharmadrisham.
Aho
Kashtam
Kashtam
Adharma Sparshate Sabham.
Adharma
Sparshate Sabha.
Yatra Dandyeshu Apapeshu.
Yatra
Dandeshva Apakeshu.
Dando Yedriyate Vrata.
Driyate Vrata.
The Viṣṇudūtas said, Alas, how painful it is that irreligious is being introduced into an assembly where religion should be maintained. Indeed, those in charge of maintaining the religious principles are neatly punishing a sinless, unpunishable person. The Viṣṇudūtas accuse the Yamadūtas of violating the religious principles by attempting to drag Ajāmila to Yamraj for punishment. Yamraj is the officer appointed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead to judge religious and irreligious principles and to punish people who are irreligious. However, if completely sinless people are punished, the entire assembly of Yamaraj is contaminated. This principle applies not only in the assembly of Yamaraj, but throughout human society also. In human society, properly maintaining religious principles is the duty of the king's court or the government. Unfortunately, in this Yuga, Kali Yuga, the religious principles are tampered with, and the government cannot properly judge who is to be punished and who is not. It is said that in the Kali Yuga, if one cannot spend money in court, one cannot get justice. Indeed, in courts of justice, it is often found that magistrates are bribed for favorable judgments. Sometimes religious men who preach the Krishna consciousness movement for the benefit of the entire populace are arrested and harassed by the police and courts. The Viṣṇudūtas, who are Vaishnavas, lamented for these very regrettable facts. Because of their spiritual compassion for all the fallen souls, Vaishnavas go out to preach according to the standard method of all religious principles. But unfortunately, because of the influence of Kali Yuga, Vaishnavas, who have dedicated their lives to preaching the glories of the Lord, are sometimes harassed and punished by courts on false charges of disturbing the peace. So the Viṣṇudūtas are telling the Yamadūtas that, you're supposed to act religiously. Yamaraj is the one. He's in a very, very, very responsible position. So he has to be very careful of who he's going to punish. And how come the very people who are supposed to maintain everyone, you are going against the maintenance and protection of those? So this is what the Viṣṇudūtas are saying. Prabhupada is pointing out that in Kali Yuga, we can see that it is practically happening, because Prabhupada also experienced that he was pushing on the Krishna consciousness movement, and there were so many difficulties in that. prajanam pitaro ye cha
Prajanam Pitaru Yechcha
shastara sadhava sama
Shastara
Sadhava Sama
Sama
yadi syateshu vaishamyam
Yadi Syateshu
Syateshu
Vesham
kam yanti sharanam praja.
Tam Yanti
Yanti
Sharanam
Sharanam
Praja.
Praja.
A king or governmental official should be so well qualified that he acts as a father, maintainer, and protector of the citizens because of affection and love. He should give the citizens good advice and instructions according to the standard scriptures and should be equal to everyone. Yamraj does this, for he is the supreme master of justice, and so do those who follow in his footsteps. However, if such persons become polluted and exhibit partiality by punishing an innocent, blameless person, where will the citizens go to take shelter for their maintenance and security? The king, or in modern times, the government, should act as the guardian of the citizens by teaching them the proper goal of life. So the Viṣṇudūtas are saying that those who are in responsible positions, those who are supposed to be maintaining, they should properly educate the people who are under them. And this is what Prabhupada is saying here in the purpose, that the leaders should educate everyone in what is actually the goal of life. The human form of life is especially meant for realization of oneself and one's relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because this cannot be realized in animal life. The duty of the government, therefore, is to take charge of training all the citizens in such a way that by a gradual process, they will be elevated to the spiritual platform and will realize the self and his relationship with God. So, what is the goal of human life?
Realization of oneself
Yes.
and one's relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Yeah, that's right. That who am I and who is God and what's my relationship with him?
Yeah.
This principle was followed by the kings like Maharaj Yudhishthir, Maharaj Parikshit, Lord Ramachandra, Maharaj Ambarish, and Prahlad Maharaj. The leaders of the government must be very honest and religious, because otherwise all the affairs of the state will suffer. So it's the responsibility of the leaders to make sure that the citizens are educated in the goal of life. Unfortunately, in the name of democracy, rogues and thieves are electing other rogues and thieves to the most important posts in the government. Recently, this has been proven in America, where the president had to be condemned and dragged down from his post by the citizens. This is only one case, but there are many others. Because of the importance of the Krishna consciousness movement, people should be Krishna conscious and should not vote for anyone who is not Krishna conscious. Then there will be actual peace and prosperity in the state. When a Vaishnav sees mismanagement in the government, he feels great compassion in his heart and tries his best to purify the situation by spreading the Hare Krishna movement. So here we can see Prabhupada's compassion, his own compassion, because it's the duty of the leaders to make sure that every citizen becomes Krishna conscious, every citizen is having a gradual elevation towards self-realization. But Prabhupada is saying he's not able to see that the leaders are not doing that. So he feels great compassion for everyone. And that's why he tried his utmost best to spread this Krishna consciousness movement throughout the world for everyone's benefit. Yad yad acharati shreya
Yad yad acharati shreya.
Shreya.
itaras tat ihate.
Tirasthat-ihate.
Sayat pramanam kurute.
Sayat pramanam
Pranam
kurute.
kurute.
Lokastad anuvartate.
Lokastat anuvartate.
Vartate.
Mass of people follow the example of a leader in society and imitate his behavior. They accept as evidence whatever the leader accepts. Krishna also says the same thing in Bhagavad Gita, that I'm not bound to do anything, but I still act exemplarily, because what the great people do, common men follow. Although Ajāmila was not punishable, the Yamadūtas were insisting on taking him away to Yamaraj for punishment. This was adharma, contrary to religious principles. The Viṣṇudūtas feared that if such irreligious acts were allowed, the management of human society would be spoiled. In modern times, the Krishna consciousness movement is trying to introduce the right principles of management for human society. But unfortunately, the governments of Kali do not properly support the Hare Krishna movement because they do not appreciate its valuable service. The Hare Krishna movement is the right movement for ameliorating the fallen condition of human society, and therefore governments and public leaders in every part of the world should support this movement to completely rectify humanity's sinful condition. So Prabhupada here is mentioning that how the Viṣṇudūtas are saying that those who are in power, those who are in leadership position, they should be very careful to follow the religious principles, and they should properly educate the citizens. And Prabhupada is pointing out that he's not receiving the cooperation that he needs. Yes, yanke shira adhaya.
Yasyanke adhaya.
Loka swapati nirvrita.
Loke
Swapiti nirvitra.
Swayam dharmam adharmam va.
Swayam adharmam adharmam
Adharma.
Nahi vedyatha pashu.
nahi vedayatha
Vedayatha
pashu.
pashu.
Sa katham nyarpitatmanam.
So katham
Apartatmanam.
Krita maitram acetanam.
krita
Maitram acetanam.
Visrambhaniyo bhutanam.
Shrambhaniyo bhutanam.
Sagrano dogdum arhati.
Sagrana
Sagrano dogdam arhati.
People in general are not very advanced in knowledge by which to discriminate between religion and irreligion. The innocent, unenlightened citizen is like an ignorant animal sleeping in peace, with its head on the lap of its master, faithfully believing in the master's protection. If a leader is actually kind-hearted and deserves to be the object of a living entity's faith, how can he punish or kill a foolish person who has fully surrendered in good faith and friendship? The Sanskrit word Vishvastaghan refers to one who breaks faith or causes breach of trust. The mass of people should always feel security because of the government's protection. Therefore, how regrettable it is for the government itself to cause a breach of trust and put the citizens in difficulty for political reasons. We actually saw during the partition days in India that although Hindus and Muslims were living together peacefully, manipulation by politicians suddenly aroused feelings of hatred between them, and thus the Hindus and Muslims killed one another over politics. This is a sign of Kali Yuga. In this age, animals are kept nicely sheltered, completely confident that the masters will protect them. But unfortunately, as soon as the animals are fat, they are immediately sent for slaughter. Such cruelty is condemned by Vaishnavas like the Viṣṇudūtas. Indeed, the hellish conditions already described await the sinful men responsible for such suffering. One who betrays the confidence of a living entity who takes shelter of him in good faith whether that living entity be a human being or an animal, is extremely sinful. Because such betrayals now go unpunished by the government, all of human society is terribly contaminated. So the Viṣṇudūtas are saying that when one takes shelter of another, the other person should provide the protection. The leaders, the government should provide the protection to the citizens. But in fact, now because of the effects of Kali Yuga, the citizens are in fact being betrayed, being manipulated. The people of this age are therefore described as Manda Sumanda Matayo, Manda Bhagya Hi Upadruta. As a consequence of such sinfulness, men are condemned Manda. Their intelligence is unclear, Sumanda Mataya. They are unfortunate, Manda Bhagaya, and therefore they are always disturbed by many problems, Upadruta. This is their situation in this life, and after death, they are punished in hellish conditions. So Kali Yuga, the symptoms of the people in Kali Yuga. Condemned, intelligence is unclear, unfortunate, and always disturbed. This is the age, and we are going through this. But there's one good fortune, that is chanting the holy name. The holy name is here. Ayam hi krita nirvesho.
Aham hi
Krita nirvesho.
Nirvesho.
Janma koti amphasam api.
Janma koti
Koti amhasam api.
Yad vyajahara vivasho.
Yat
Vyajahara vivaso.
Nama swasti ayanam hare.
Nama
Nama swasti ayam hare.
Ajāmila has already atoned for all his sinful actions. Indeed, he has atoned not only for sins performed in one life, but for those performed in millions of lives. For in a helpless condition, he chanted the holy name of Narayan. Even though he did not chant purely, he chanted without offense, and therefore he is now pure and eligible for liberation. So this is the power of the holy name, that by chanting offenselessly, he didn't even say the pure name, not Shuddhanam, but Namabhas. Namabhas gives one liberation. All the sins are vanquished in one moment. The Yamadūtas had considered only the external situation of Ajāmila. Since he was extremely sinful throughout his life, they thought he should be taken to Yamaraj, and did not know that he had become free from the reactions of all his sins. The Viṣṇudūtas therefore instructed that because he had chanted the 4 syllables of the name Narayana at the time of his death, he was freed from all sinful reactions. So that's why the Viṣṇudūtas are saying how you are doing injustice. This person has no sins and you're still taking him away. Whereas the Yamadūtas were just looking at the past of Ajāmila. They were not looking currently that he's not sinful anymore. In this regard, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur quotes the following verses from the Smriti Shastra. Namno hi yavati shakti papa nirparane hare tavat kartum na shaknoti patakam pataki naraha. Simply by chanting one holy name of Hari, a sinful man can counteract the reactions to more sins than he is able to commit. Brihad Vishnu Puran. So Brihad Vishnu, okay. Following verses from Smriti Shastra. So the Brihad Vishnu Puran is saying this. Simply by chanting one holy name of Hari, a sinful man can counteract the reactions to more sins than he is able to commit. So how about one says, well, so then I'm going to keep on committing sins and I'm going to keep on chanting. And like that, the holy name will take away all the sins. What do you say? That becomes an offense to the holy name. That's the 7th offense. committing sins on the strength of chanting the holy name, then that is taking advantage of the holy name. If one intentionally one commits sins and then chants and says no, then that does not help. That's offensive.
Hare
Okay, so
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Sorry, I didn't get the last point, the last question that you asked. I just missed out the question. Can you please repeat the question you asked?
Oh, well, I was saying, because here Brihad Vishnu Puran is saying that by chanting one name of Hari, then all the reactions of the sins are gone away. More sins than he is able to commit. So how about one says, oh, well, then I'll just keep on committing more and more sins and I'll keep on chanting.
Okay, okay.
So I was asking, what do you think about that?
Okay. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Yeah, so, but we can't do that because then that is an offense to the holy name. You know, that is like intentionally committing sins and saying, I will intentionally commit sin and then I will chant and that will take it away. That's offensive. So, avashenapi yannami kirtite sarva patake puman vimuchyate satya simhatraster mrigeriva. If one chants the holy name of the Lord, even in a helpless condition or without desiring to do so, all the reactions of his sinful life depart. Just as when a lion roars, all the small animals flee in fear. Garud Puran. So here, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is pointing out some verses from the Shastras, which are glorifying the power of the holy name. And the holy name is so powerful that it can take away all the sins, that even one name of Krishna can destroy all the sins, more sins than we can commit. Sakrit ucharitam yena harir iti aksharadavyam vayam vada parikarastena mokshaya gamanam prati. By once chanting the holy name of the Lord, which consists of the two syllables Hari, one guarantees his path to liberation. Skand Puran. These are some of the reasons why the Viṣṇudūtas objected to the Yamadutas taking Ajāmila to the court of Yamaraj. Questions, comments? No? Okay. Eteneva hi aghonosya
Eteneva
Hi agano
agunusya
asya
kritam syad aganishkritam
kritam syad
shad
aganishkritam
aganishkritam
yada narayanayeti
yada
yada
narayanayeti
narayanayeti
jagada chatur aksharam.
jagada
jagada chatur
aksharam.
aksharam.
The Viṣṇudūtas continued even previously, while eating and at other times, this Ajāmila would call his son, saying, my dear Narayan, please come here. Although calling the name of his son, he nevertheless uttered the 4 syllables, Narayana. Simply by chanting the name of Narayan in this way, he sufficiently atoned for the sinful reactions of millions of lives. Previously, when engaged in sinful activities to maintain his family, Ajāmila chanted the name of Narayan without offenses. To chant the holy name of the Lord just to counteract one's sinful activities or to commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name is offensive. Namno balad yasya hi papa buddhiki. So this is a difference. Ajāmila, he was calling out throughout his life, he was saying Narayan, Narayan. Although he didn't mean to call the Lord, he was just calling his son. But because he was chanting the Lord's name offenselessly, he was not thinking, oh, the name is going to purify me, the name will take away all my sins. No, he was just calling out the name. So that's why it is said he was offenselessly chanting. So Prabhupada is here is clarifying that if
Krishna.
one thinks, okay, I will continue to commit sinful activities and I will continue chanting, no, then that is offensive. That's offensive. But
But he
Ajāmila
was
was
still
chanting.
committing, no? Offenses. He was
was.
still committing, right?
Yeah, but he was not
was still
expecting the
doing-
name to purify him. He was not chanting
Hmm.
with the intention that the name will take away my sinful reactions.
Okay.
That's why he's chanting Nam Abhas.
Okay.
See, because there's a difference. When one is chanting with the intention that, okay, I will continue sins and I will chant,
Right.
that becomes offensive. But
Okay.
Ajāmila had no such intention. He was continuing to do his sins. He was
Yes.
calling his son, but by calling his son, he's actually calling Narayan without any desire of any liberation or desire of freedom of sinful reaction.
Right.
He was not committing any offense while saying Narayan. So that's why it
Right.
became Namabha. So we can see how compassionate actually Krishna is.
Krishna, yes.
So compassionate that
Hare Krishna.
he's not even calling Narayan, but Narayan is saying, no, he said my name. And he said it offenselessly. So he has no more sins.
Hare Krishna.
That's what he's saying here. Prabhupada is explaining. Yes, Deepika. Yes.
Yeah, like how in some religions they do commit sins and then they pray to Lord and they go even to the extent to, okay, I'm going to go and ask for forgiveness, and they pay the penalty or something, and then they are like feeling that, okay, that will relieve me, and they continue with that same thing. They don't realize that what actually it means is that you have to not go with that intention that, okay, I will be allowed in future to do it again. So you're not, you're not, yes. So this is so clearly is mentioning that, he was not doing it because he understood the fact that he was committing a sin, and it was just that he was calling out the name of his son in love, Narayan. Yeah. Hare Krishna.
So reading on, but although Ajāmila engaged in sinful activities, he never chanted the holy name of Narayan to counteract them. He simply chanted the name Narayan to call his son. Therefore, his chanting was effective. Because of chanting the holy name of Narayan in this way, he had already vanquished the accumulated sinful reactions of many, many lives. Like he had no intention that I'm saying Narayan and Narayan will take away all my sins. No. In the beginning, he was pure, but although he later committed many sinful acts, he was offenseless because he did not chant the holy name of Narayan to counteract them. One who always chants the holy name of the Lord, without offenses is always pure. As confirmed in this verse, Ajāmila was already sinless, and because he chanted the name of Narayan, he remained sinless. It did not matter that he was calling his son, the name itself was effective. Because after all, Narayan and his name, non-different. It's the same. The Lord and his name, there's no difference. In the material world, the name is different from the object. But for the Lord, no. He and his name is the same. Stena Swarapo Mitra Dhruk.
Stena Surapo Mitra Drug.
Brahmaha Guru Talpaga.
Brahmaha Guru Talpaga.
Stri Raja Pitra Gohanta.
Stri
Raja Pitra Gohanta.
Yecha Pata Kino Pare.
ye cha patakino
Patakino
pare
pare.
Sarvesham api agavatam
sarvesham
Api Bhagavata.
idam eva sunishkritam
idam eva sunishkritam
Sunishkritam.
nama vyaharanam Vishnu
nama vyaharanam Vishnur
yatastad vishayamate.
yatastad
Tad
vishayamati.
Vishayamati.
The chanting of the holy name of Lord Vishnu is the best process of atonement for a thief of gold or other valuables, for a drunkard, or for one who betrays a friend or relative, for one who kills a brahmana, or for one who indulges in sex with the wife of his guru or another superior. It is also the best method of atonement for one who murders women, the king or his father, for one who slaughters cows, and for all other sinful men. Simply by chanting the holy name of Lord Vishnu, such sinful persons may attract the attention of the Supreme Lord, who therefore considers, because this man has chanted my holy name, my duty is to give him protection. So the Viṣṇudūtas are saying that how compassionate the Lord is when one takes shelter of his name. He gives protection no matter what sin one may have committed, but one has to stop committing the sins.
Yeah, yes,
One
to
has
stop.
to stop.
committing.
Yeah, one has to
Yeah.
stop committing the sins.
Not to-
Otherwise, then that becomes offensive. If one
Offensive,
continues
yeah.
to commit sin
Right.
and chant saying that, oh, I'll continue to sin and I'm going to chant. That's offensive chanting.
Yeah.
One can chant and hope and pray that please take away my desire to sin. We can do that. And say, please take away my desire to sin. But yeah, the sinful activity has to be stopped. So we'll stop here for today.
Yes.
Okay. Did anyone
it
want
long?
to add anything?
The next verse is long, is it? But we actually have 4 minutes.
We actually have, I'm sorry.
We actually have 5 minutes. 5 minutes.
Okay. So that's,
Yeah.
you want to read this one? Okay.
Yeah.
Nanishkritero brahmavadibis
Nanishkrite
Udite
udite brahmavadibis
Brahmavadibis.
Tatha Vishuddhya Bhagavan Vretadibis
Tatha
Tatha
Vishuddhyati
Vishuddhyati
Bhagavan
Agavana
Vretadibis
Yatha Harinama Pade Udharites
Yatha
Yatha
Harinama
Harinam
Pade
Pader Udahrites.
Tad Uttamashloka Guno Palambhakam
Tat
Tad
Uttama
Uttama
Shloka
Shloka
Guno Palambhakam.
Palambaka.
By following the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies or undergoing atonement, sinful men do not become as purified as by chanting once the holy name of Lord Hari. Although ritualistic atonement may free one from sinful reactions, it does not awaken devotional service, unlike the chanting of the Lord's names, which reminds one of the Lord's fame, qualities, attributes, pastimes, and paraphernalia. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments that the chanting of the holy name of the Lord has special significance that distinguishes it from the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies of atonement for severe, more severe, or most severe sinful actions. So, because like prayaschit, those activities of prayaschit, undergoing different types of atonement, there's no comparison to any kind of atonement to once chanting the holy name of the Lord. There are 20 types of religious scriptures called Dharma Shastras, beginning with the Manu Samhita and Parashar Samhita. But herein it is stressed that although one may become free from the reactions of the most sinful activities by following the religious principles of these scriptures, this cannot promote a sinful man with a stage of loving service to the Lord. So by doing prayaschit, one can become free of the sins, but one cannot get bhakti by prayaschit. And also by doing prayaschit, atonement, the desire to sin may still be there. You know? On the other hand, chanting the holy name of the Lord even once not only frees one immediately from the reactions of the greatest sins, but also raises one to the platform of rendering loving service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is described as Uttama Shlok because he is famous for his glorious activities. So by chanting the holy name, one can revive one's love for Krishna, Krishna Prema, which one cannot get by doing any amount of austerity, penance, charity, any kind of religious activity or ritual. The chanting of the holy name can give us Krishna Prema. Thus one serves the Lord by remembering his form, his attributes and pastimes. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that this is all possible simply by chanting the Lord's holy name because of the Lord's omnipotence. What cannot be achieved through the performance of Vedic rituals can be easily achieved through the chanting of the Lord's holy name. To chant the holy name and dance in ecstasy is so easy and sublime that one can achieve all the benefits of spiritual life simply by following this process. Therefore, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu declares, Param Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtana. All glories to Sri Krishna Sankirtana. The Sankirtana movement we have started offers the best process for becoming purified of all sinful reactions and coming immediately to the platform of spiritual life. So we can see how by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, one can get the highest perfectional stage. One can get love of God. The liberation is kind of like by the way, it will automatically happen. Sinful reactions will automatically go away when one can get love of God by chanting the name of the Lord, which cannot be had by any other process. This is the process we are given in this age of Kali. Did anyone want to add anything? Yes, stop here for today. Thank you so much for listening and joining in. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna.